We're back, Chris. We're back on our dirigible. That's it. And at the request of friend of the show and former guest Gregory Kogos, we are in the Ukraine.
Yes.
We're in the Ukraine celebrating the games of that country. Do you want to know some facts about Ukraine?
Highlight of the month. Lay it on me.
It's the largest country in Europe. It is known as the breadbasket of Europe, famously because of the fertility of its soil being the prime condition to grow wheat.
I didn't know that. That's pretty. That's nice, isn't it?
Weirdly, I knew that before this. I didn't. Obviously. Ukraine is also the world's largest producer of sunflower seeds, and they grow enough sunflowers to cover the entire of Slovenia, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how big Slovenia is.
Smaller.
Yeah. The world's deepest metro station is in Kyiv, over 100 meters below the surface, built during the Cold War era with the threat of nuclear war influencing their depths. On a brighter note, Easter eggs originated from Ukraine, which is pretty cool. So there you go. Started with dipping eggs in wax or something.
And then chocolate. No, that would be another country would have bastardized it, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
I would imagine.
Definitely.
I would imagine.
And also, chicken Kiev, it can only be known as that if it is a battered chicken parcel filled with garlic butter from the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. Otherwise, it should technically be known as a sparkling, spicy squirter.
They come out like, in Alan Partridge's parlance, hotter than the sun.
And directly into your eyes.
They really do. And you can't guarantee the sputter point or where it's going to be. Like you go to cut and you're like, well, obviously it will fire away from where my knife stroke is going. That's where it will burst. And
Absolutely.
It's like out the back. It's like a jam donut. It chooses a new point of weakness.
It's buckaroo all over again.
Oh dear.
What are the games of Ukraine, Chris? What are the games?
There's a decent range of games from Ukraine. I'll mention a few of the country's relatively large or larger developers towards the end of this section. But in terms of interesting one-offs or side notes first, there's a game called Football Tactics and Glory. It's an interesting football sim meets tactics RPG that I really wanted to love, but just really didn't when I tried to play it a few years back. This comes from Ukrainian team Creo Team, not to be confused with Croatian Crow Team, different people, and has you moving players almost Sabutio style across a gridded pitch to sort of preempt opponents' runs or set up for audacious shots and crosses. It's not as good as I wanted it to be. But it's interesting. It is interesting. The Party Hard series of games that I know about mainly because they're always on perpetual deep discounts on the Switch eShop. They're kind of like heavily inspired by the stylish violence of Hotline Miami, things like that. They come from Ukrainian dev Pinochle Games, and they seem to be reasonably well received. I haven't got first-hand experience on those, though. Perpetual meme game Big Rigs Over-the-Road Racing comes from Ukraine-based Stellar Stone, and at one stage held the unenviable title of lowest ranked game on Metacritic with a whopping 6% aggregate score, which I thought was an interesting thing to mention.
Yeah.
Getting bigger, the Stalker series comes to us from GSC Game World, another Kyiv-based studio, and indeed it was the splintering of that studio that birthed 4A Games, who would go on to create the stylistically similar Metro series of games. So that's 2033, Last Light, and Exodus. Now, to my understanding, the Stalker games take place in the direct geographic and historical aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster. And although Metro is actually set in the abandoned metro tunnels in Moscow, there's definitely genre overlap between these series in terms of like what they are doing and what they're trying to do and the way narrative works and the way the experience is and everything else. Ubisoft, although not having a Ukraine-specific office, do have European teams stationed all over the continent, including Kyiv, and this team has supported on components for a number of high-profile games, including some of the Tom Clancy games, Prince Persia: The Lost Crown, and even the most recent Trials game, Trials Rising, was in parts developed by people of the Ukraine. And finally, Frogwares, most famous for the very long-running Sherlock Holmes adventure series, hails from Ukraine. Now, I believe, would I be right in thinking you might have picked through one of their other IPs for your game of the month, Jonathan, that was not Sherlock Holmes?
I have indeed.
Yes?
I have been playing The Sinking City.
Oh, Lovecraft.
Very Lovecraft. Very Lovecraft. The Sinking City was first released back in 2019, but it's had a nice shiny remaster for modern platforms back in May of this year. And I've been playing that remastered version on PS5.
What?
Mm. So The Sinking City is an open-world detective action-y adventure game inspired by the works of H.P. Lovecraft. Now, I'm a big Lovecraft fan. His work, not his politics. Definitely worth saying that.
Yeah, always.
And this game has been on my radar for a while, so it was nice to have, the excuse to play it. All the familiar Lovecraft tropes are at play here. Nightmarish visions of apocalyptic aquatic monstrosities, interdimensional multiversal threats, swiftly dwindling sanity, occultism, proper right-down weirdos at every turn.
Mm.
It's set in the 1920s, so it fits the period of his writings as well. And it's a strange thing to say about such a miserable, disturbing, and unsettling world, but it's just so great to spend time in it. The level of detail in the game is quite something. Like, you can properly luxuriate in the atmosphere and take your time slowly poking around and exploring the world, and these people and the story. The level of detail and design in the game is just huge. It's fully realized, populated, considered world, which is so key for an open world game, but especially for one that encourages you to go off the beaten track and really pick over the little things and see what's around every corner and look in the places you don't think you meant to look in. It means that, the devs can't phone in any bits of the game. It's all got to be thought out. It's all got to be realized. Tone and atmosphere of the game is just great and palpable. It's all augmented by visual representations of your waning sanity, which is something I absolutely love. It's significantly less gimmicky than Eternal Darkness, which I still absolutely adore. And it was the first game to properly sort of do that. But here it's more subtle, but it's frequently unsettling. It's never properly scary. I like my sort of horror games to be sort of creepy and unsettling, but not. I don't want to feel fear. I don't want that. I don't want to feel afraid.
No. Who does?
That's not what I want.
Definitely
That's not what
not
I want. That's what I had when I played Resident Evil 7 in VR. I felt scared, and that wasn't nice. Excuse me. It plays a bit like Resident Evil, not first person. It's third person, over the shoulder, over the counter cameras, over the shoulder counters, over the camera. Fuck me. Over the shoulder camera, the general sort of scavenging and crafting mechanics, finding anything and everything that might be of use or interest, and adding it to your notes and your inventory. There is combat and action stuff, but the real star of the game is this detective narrative. For a start, the writing is great. Lovecraft's writing, tone, and dialogue is quite easy to ape and imitate, and often feels like parody. But here they've really nailed it, and it works. It works well. The voice actors are great. It's just a lot of fun. It owns how ridiculous it is. It's great. I'm not going to give anything away about the story, and I've not finished the game yet either. But it takes so many great twists and turns and stomach churning surprises and all kinds of things that you would and wouldn't expect in a Lovecraftian tale, or would expect and not expect, or wouldn't expect to expect. Who knows? The characters are all really well designed. I love the visual design of the characters in this. It's just brilliant, especially the Innsmouthers, who are exactly as I pictured them when I read The Shadow over Innsmouth. Picture someone fishy, just
very fishy.
But the way the game handles like the detective mechanics is just really cool. It's different to what I've experienced in these sort of games before, which, to be fair, I haven't played a huge amount of these type of sort of narrative heavy games, or like the Telltale games or anything like that. That sort of that sort of thing. But it really feels like you're properly putting all the pieces of the puzzle together yourself, not just going from A to B or adding things to your inventory. The game just making it work. You've got to collect the evidence and then work out how it all connects to each other. And you can only do that by reading the details and talking to people, listening to them, not just skipping through everything and hoping the game will do the rest. So it's really satisfying. And I really love that it's a slow game. And I'm a bit annoyed that I didn't play this when I was say when Eternal Darkness came out, this is
Yeah.
exactly the sort of game I would, like I said, luxuriate in it. But for me, like these days, like I crave quicker experiences. I want
Yeah.
things I can actively play. But then also, maybe in the evenings, if I have been playing games, I've been playing Night Rain, and now that that's slowing down, maybe once everybody's gone to bed, I'll open up some creepy Lovecraft
The
stuff and
Sinking City.
the Sinking City. There's not really much more I can say about the game without risking spoiling the story. But what I will say is that I think this is a really impressive game. Like, it looks and feels wonderful to be in this world. And if you're a fan of Lovecraftian things, then it's definitely well worth your time. I mean, certainly in lieu of, good adaptations of Lovecraft stuff in other media, which are a bit few and far between. This at least feels like, whilst it's not a direct adaptation, it's an absolute slam dunk. I love it.
Nice.
What did you play?
I went off-piste a bit for this one. Like, as I mentioned very briefly, I tried Football Tactics and Glory, and I really wanted to be able to say, this is a hidden gem. It totally reinvents football on a console. But in the couple hours I gave it, it just didn't click for me at all. It's both too complex and too simple at the same time, at least in the early matches. And so I went back to my big Dorling Kinsley list of games developed in the Ukraine to choose something a little different. Action Forms Limited were a Ukrainian developer whose doors were open between 1995 and 2011. They scored a modest hit with their breakout shooter Chasm the Rift in 1997, which coincidentally was brought by some other team semi-recently and released across all modern machines. So you can get it on the Switch if you want. But their bread and butter became a long-running series of hunting games called Carnivores. And this was a PC-first set of slow and methodical dinosaur hunting games. When iOS had its big games boom, they partnered with another Ukrainian studio known as Tatum Games to bring a couple of the better received Carnivores entries to mobile. And when the PSP was still doing reasonable numbers, the same two games were ported from iOS to the PSP by another Ukrainian team called Beat Shapers. So we're kind of like 3 tiers of Ukrainian development down now. Of the 2 games available for Sony's handheld, I decided I was going to play, or try to play, Carnivores Dinosaur Hunter, which was the first of the 2 releases to come out on that handheld. And I think it's actually pretty decent for what it is.
Yeah.
This is a slow, reasonably awkward game to play on the limited controller set of the PSP. But with a few rounds of practice, things do start to click, and it becomes almost like an incremental game because you're forced to play early, simple hunts to earn points that can be spent on the weapons needed to take on harder hunts with bigger creatures that grant more points to put back into the pool to push you forwards to bigger creatures. And it's that kind of like bigger and bigger and bigger sort of thing. Each stage is open-ended. It's set across a reasonably expansive map that will take a good few minutes to traverse end to end. Depending on the mission you choose, there'll be different dinosaurs roaming the space. On earlier missions, they tend to be herbivorous, and so only interact with you if you get too close to them and spook them, or indeed if they've been shot at, that will make a move as well. But eventually you need to take far more care in your approach, ensuring that you've got a decent loadout, so you're not going to run out of ammunition in the middle of a firefight and everything else. You always have at least one goal dinosaur that you're hunting. And although you can take down other creatures in the same hunt, you're only credited points for those you have an active bounty for. So you might need to take some out sometimes because they are a threat to your life as the hunter. But otherwise, you can kind of let the kind of like the nice ones just do their own thing. Let the Stegosaurus just have his moment in the distance. It doesn't matter. The controls, as I said, do take a bit of practice, but they work well once you've built up a bit of muscle memory. You move forwards, backwards, and side to side using the face buttons, N64 Turok style, with aiming handled with the left, and on the PSP, only analog stick. That's why it was set up this way. You draw your weapon with L, you fire with R, and you use the D-pad to trigger all manner of hunting assists. So One Direction will load an overview map that will pinpoint where on the island your bounty dinos are, but you do then lose score for consulting this map. So instead, you want to try and maximize your profits by using a combination of the binoculars, the compass, and your dinosaur call that are all set to the other directional buttons. Given the power of the PSP, this is not as in-depth as modern hunting games, where I assume, because I've not played any of them, you're forced to probably track animals by prints or scent or some nonsense like that. But the slightly more pick up and play, slightly more arcadey take on the sim genre that this goes for actually made it far more enjoyable for a total genre newbie like me. You know,
Yeah.
if you drop me into kind of like hunting sim 2025, I'm probably going to get nowhere. Whereas this, where it was like, this is the shoot button, this is the map button. Go that direction, and there'll probably be a dinosaur. I can handle that. That's about my speed. What I particularly liked about the experience, and feel free to set off some QI klaxons for this one in post, is the sense of place you get from slowly learning a relatively desolate map and eventually being able to pinpoint your location by the trees and the stumps and the swamps and the bodies of water and everything else. This would absolutely be better on a bigger scale, but there is something reasonably effective in playing this on a small screen, like the PSP, or I've been playing it on the Flip 2 that I mentioned earlier, because I think it does it a bit more justice than blowing up this tiny experience to a huge 60-inch TV. You know, it was not meant for that because it was on a tiny little handheld in the first place. So it kind of fits in that context too. There's no music, there's just ambient sounds and animal calls. The only human interactions you have are when you've downed a trophy dinosaur and you hear a voice clip that is in English with a very heavy Ukrainian twang report that they've received coordinates and are incoming to collect your bounty.
You give me an impression of that.
No, if you hover around for long enough, you will see a little kind of like spacecraft type thing hover over and pick up your dinosaur, as if it's like one of those big sort of magnets you have at like a car lot, you know, to pick up the junk cars and drop it down somewhere else. And then if you watch it, it will zoom off into the PSP's horizon fog. It's all very nice. Again, I think it's decent. You know, it's an oddity really, but it is decent. Both of the Carnivores games on the PSP launched as minis. That was kind of the platform's smaller games that could be bought digital only. And from research, they were £2.50 each. And for that sort of price, I think any quibbles you might have about lack of simulation depth or breadth, they kind of wash away. You know, you can't expect that much for a few quid, especially not at that time. I don't remember buying any games digitally on my PSP. I did on the Vita, absolutely. But, you know, this wasn't one that I picked up on that machine when the Vita was kind of my daily driver. But via emulation today, I think it's worth a little look. Although with the heavy caveat that if you are into more modern hunting sims, don't bother unless you want to shoot some dinosaurs specifically. But, you know, if like me, you're just intrigued what this looked like and how it played on a console that only had one analog stick, it's an interesting curio. And I think, some good stuff from Ukraine.
PlayStation Official Magazine gave it 2 out of 10.
What is their review? Does it?
Games Master gave it 30%.
All good. They're the ones to watch out for. 10. They're the ones to watch out for.
Push Square gave it 5 out of 10. So
there we go.
That's positive.
I think I feel about like that. 5's about fair.
So that's the Ukraine in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
certainly
everything.
in terms of games.
Carnivores and the Sinking City.
Yeah, the Sinking Carnivores.
What more could you want?
That's a good name for a band. We are Sinking Carnivores.
There we go.
That's better.